back to the Canadian Ruck. This is Jamie Gray. We're going a little old school this time. I'm in my classroom today, and it's Friday, and I don't have my mic. I don't have my usual swag, but I have some free time, and I want to do the intro for our pod, which is coming up. And you're going to be lucky enough to hear Eric Rodrigues. Eric is first of a three-part series featuring some of our national wheelchair ruggers, and it's exciting. Sorry, I kind of trailed off there. It's really exciting. It was great conversations with three lads, and I hope you stay tuned because you're going to want to hear from Eric. Eric became a quadriplegic following a snowboarding accident back in 2009. He joined the national team in 2017. 2017, he was also Ontario's male para-athlete of the year, silver medalist of the 2017 America's Championship. He also repped Canada in the 2018 Canada Cup and World Championships, finished sixth in the GO 2018 IWRF Wheel Chair Rugby World Championships, finished fourth place at the 2018 Canada Cup, silver medal at the 2019 Lima Para-Pan Am Games. He wears number 41. He's on defense, and his club team is the Toronto Titans. We'll be hearing from him very, very soon. Just a quick plug. If you're new to the pod, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, Canadian Ruck. Just look up for the Canadian Ruck. We are there. Our email is thecanadianruck@gmail.com. If you're new or if you're a veteran listener, you know that we are on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, CastBox, YouTube. Make sure you're following, subscribing, pushing these stories out for other people to hear. And we also have our own website, thecanadianruck.weebly.com, where you can find lots of valuable information there. All right, we're going to take a look at some rugby news, and there's a couple of things I want to focus on. One is on the international/national side. World Rugby have selected their teams of the decade. You've probably seen this. He's been out for a few days. Men's side, naturally littered with All Blacks, 7 in total, including Player of the Decade, Richie McCaw. South Africa represented 3s, including friend of the pod, The Beast. 2 from Ireland, 1 from Australia, 1 from England, 1 from Italy. Great inclusions, absolutely. As a Canadian, my thought is like, why isn't DTH there? How come he hasn't cracked the roster? He's played in 2011, 2015, 2019 Rugby World Cups, almost a try a game, like one of the best wingers of his generation, and he's not there. Things get a little more contentious on the women's side. Not one Canadian on the roster. We're ranked 3rd in the world on 15s and at 7s. What are they thinking? Like, what about the likes of Magali Harvey or Tyson Bukaboom or Olivia DeMerchant, good New Brunswick girl, or Cam Paquin? Like, these women have all played in the 2014, the 2017 Rugby World Cups. They would have been playing this year. They'll be playing next year in the World Cup. How are these star players and other big names, how did they get excluded? How did World Rugby completely lose track of what's going on with Canadian rugby and women in Canadian rugby for sure? How did they get overlooked? It's just shameful selection process. Like, nothing against those that cracked that top 15, that top team of the decade. Kudos and hats off. But I think, and a lot of people would probably argue with me, that some of those positions, some of those players, there's some bias there for sure. And anyway, it is done now. It is what it is. So they say, I hate that saying, but it's true. They are selected, and congrats to those who are, and apologies to those who weren't and probably should have been. Also on the international side, Nigel Owens, he officiated his 100th test cap last week, I believe, and now he's officially, as of today, Friday, retired from officiating test rugby. I'm excited. He and I are supposed to be chatting after the holidays for the pod. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you are too. And lastly, in the news, and this has been making news over the last week or so, just is head injuries in rugby. And I often argue with some of my, coworkers who maybe they coach other sports, or maybe they're not familiar with rugby, and explain that, rugby's come a long way. It's protocols we have in place are some of the tops in the world when it comes to concussion and brain injury. Saying that, there's still definitely a long ways to go. And just recently, over the last few days, over 70 ex-retired players have hired a British law firm, and they're looking into suing the Rugby Football Union, the Welsh Rugby Union, and World Rugby, and is expected, you know, this number could go from 70 into the hundreds, potentially even the thousands. Basically looking back at how players were treated and with I guess with concerns of concussion issues and brain trauma issues, and how they potentially feel it was swept under the rug or not enough was done. Science, so I was doing some reading there, and I'm a minor expert in concussions just due to how many I've had, but a couple of things I picked up. So scientific trials over the past decade have established a clear link between repeated concussions and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. That's a hard one. CTE, which is better known as, which is a degenerative brain disease which can lead to dementia. They're saying, like, there's no doubt there is a link, and that's being argued. Michael Littman, who's an ex-Bath flanker, he played 10 caps with England between 2004 and 2008, has been suffering symptoms of mild dementia, and he's only 40 years old. He's now living in Australia. He estimates he suffered around 30 concussions during his career, and he told the Sydney Morning Herald last month, "If I wasn't completely knocked out, I played on." We'll unpack that maybe in a little bit. I did a little more research, and Dr. Lee Goldstein, who works with chronic, so he works for the CTE Center in Boston University, and his team has studied over 1,000 brain states. Concussions is a syndrome. It's not a disease, all right? So we know that. It's a collection of signs and symptoms, and its definition varies from group to group, from year to year. He goes on to say that concussion itself is not the driver. There's no relationship between the disease CTE and concussion, even if we decide on a definition of concussion. But we do see a very strong relationship with total cumulative years of exposure. That's key. That's what he focuses on. So that suggests not that the concussive hits are good, but they're much smaller contributors to the disease than the cumulative subconcussive hits. So the more exposure you have to brain injury, develops higher probable that you might get CTE or dementia. He's not saying it's concussions, but he's saying there's some correlations with brain damage over extended periods of time. The cumulative effect is an area to look at. It's something they kind of argue about the smoking thing. Somebody smokes a pack a day for 20 years, they're at risk of getting lung cancer. Their risk increases. However, Goldstein also says there's going to be some people who will never get it, just as there are some people who can smoke 5 packs a day for 20 years and they're fine. There's a cumulative factor. There's a repetitive factor, and then there's the luck of the draw. If you get it repeatedly in the same spot, and then he just kind of doesn't answer because theory states and dictates that, yeah, something's probably going to happen. Personally, all of this is hard to digest on a number of levels. I definitely have empathy for those dealing with this, for the Lippmans and for those other players who are dealing with, early onset dementia at only 40 years old. I want those ex-players to be healthy and have the ability to carry on with life after the game and move forward in a safe and healthy manner. The Jamie Cudmore and people like that who've had a tremendous amount of concussion, same thing. Sometimes I struggle with the means that the group is using, though. Look at the NFL, the NHL is doing the same thing a little bit now rugby players are doing the same. I struggle with those means. So a little bit about me, and I've shared kind of little bits and things about me every once in a while. So I was unfortunate enough to suffer 9 concussions in a 10-year span, mostly in hockey, a couple in rugby. The last one was in 2006. It was a funny one because I was doing my teaching practicum, and I got kicked in the head by a girl kicking a soccer ball, and the soccer ball hit me in the head, and it rendered me useless for the longest time. If that had happened to, Joe Blow down the street or whoever, somebody who hadn't had a concussion, more than likely nothing would have happened. That was my last one. That was in 2006. That's when that's when I had been a few years already suffering symptoms, and that really set it off worse. So for me, my last, I don't want to say large, major, whatever, because I don't think they're tiered anymore. But I had one in 2003, and that one really messed me up hard. But I kept going to school. I was in university. I kept taking my 7 classes a semester. I was working 30 hours a week at a bank at a call center. So I kept doing that. I kept playing sports for the most part. I didn't know any better. There's no science. Nobody was saying you should stop playing. You should look after your head. I didn't know. It's not like there was training like there is today. It's not like there's been scientific breakthroughs the way there has been today. I would have symptoms like headaches, tinnitus, nausea, seasickness. And that one, I liken it to like you're on a ship in the sea and you're getting 10, 15-foot swales and your boat's rocking back and forth, and that's how you walk. And that's how I would feel like I was walking. Even though I was going in a straight line, I would feel like I was swaying. Balance issues, memory loss, mood swings. Holy geez, I was irritable. Ask my wife, she'll tell you, and it's 100% true. Loss of interest, loss of confidence, loss of desire, hallucinations. Sometimes I would see things, shadows, and things that definitely weren't there. In 2003, after I had probably my most severe concussion, I decided on my own really to kind of back away. I had conversations with my girlfriend at the time, who I'm now married to. A few doctors, neurologists, they started to say, like, Jamie, what the hell? Like, take better care of yourself and stuff like that. So in 2003 is when I kind of decided I need to stop playing contact sports. Doctors started to say things like, yeah, you should probably stop doing this as well. Don't be riding bikes, don't be jumping on trampolines, all things people in their 20s do. So I did. I even flew from New Brunswick to Toronto in 2007 and met with one of the top neurologists in the country who deals with concussions. And basically I had an hour meeting with her to find out that, yeah, what's happening is normal. This could last a lifetime. And she's been right. It's 2020 and I still suffer symptoms. Post-concussion syndrome is what it's called. They're less frequent and it's more manageable. But from 2003 until, for 15 years, roughly, I would have a month or two where I would feel great. I would be able to go to the gym and exercise and do things that a normal person could. And then I would get 3-4 months straight where I'm popping Advil like crazy to keep the headaches away. And, I have a hard time staying focused and not losing my temper and things like that. So it wasn't a fun time. It wasn't easy, but we didn't know any better. And that's what happened. And I guess, as Goldstein and others have stated, concussions or brain injuries, it's an ever-evolving scientific field. It's just something you don't know about. So I guess I would question, like, how can somebody sue someone or blame another for effects that weren't fully known or fully understood at the time it happened? Does that mean somebody who was injured in a car accident in the 70s has the right to sue the government or car manufacturer over the lack of seatbelt laws? My grandmother was told by doctors to take up smoking in the 50s to relieve stress. She got cancer and died. Should we have sued the doctors and health officials over that? Should I look at suing doctors, provincial rugby unions, hockey organizations, ex-coaches for not keeping me out of games when I had head injuries? I don't think so. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I'm not one to, this is a sign of post-concussion syndrome as well, as forgetting words that are there. And it's also a sign of getting older, and I'm 44, so it could be that. And I don't look back on my life with regret, right? I try to live life so that I don't have regrets. But I also, I don't know. I do wish I had some inkling that what was going on with my brain would have such lasting effects. But I can't blame others in the 90s and early 2000s for not knowing what they didn't know. Anyway, I do feel bad for these athletes that felt they had to keep going back out. And, some of them in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we didn't know the science. You get into the 2000s, the science starts becoming available. And yeah, maybe it's a difference. Maybe there's something there. I don't know, but I think World Rugby is trying to do better. I think World Rugby is ahead of the game. When I played, there was no back to school protocol. There's no back to play protocol. There's no back to work protocol. Those things are all phased in over time, and it makes things more manageable. Now, when you document something, like if somebody's got 2 or 3 concussions, It's like, well, why are you still playing rugby, or why are you still playing hockey, or why are you still playing football or soccer, what have you? Contact sports, high impact sports, like your brain is you only have one brain, and when that goes, good luck, right? Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next little while. I don't know how I feel about it. I want these players to be healthy. I don't know who needs to be held accountable. That's not up for me to decide. But saying that, we've got a really exciting guest, and you're gonna love listening to Eric Rodrigues. We had a chance to chat a few weeks ago. Like I said, it's the first of 3 straight pods we're doing with some wheelchair ruggers. And then I'm going to chat with the 3 of them again. We're going to dissect a bit of a wheelchair rugby match and have that playing on YouTube so that everybody gets a chance to understand, because the 2021 Paralympics are coming up, and these guys need all the Canadian support they can have. So stay tuned. Up next, Eric Rodrigues.
All right, so we'll jump right in. Eric, welcome to the Canadian Ruck. It's a pleasure to have you here. You're our first para rugby athlete that we get on our podcast, and this is exciting because I love everything rugby, and I'm excited to hear your story as our listeners. Eric, welcome to the Canadian Ruck.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so Eric, let's jump right in. So you're born and raised in Ontario, and it's a typical rugby hotbed. Talk to us, I guess, about your journey, your accident that led you to wheelchair rugby, and how you became involved in wheelchair rugby.
So I pretty much broke my neck snowboarding in 2009 on a little vacation with some friends, and spent the better part of 2009 in a hospital. And a patient that was at the hospital with me kind of slipped me a DVD of a documentary called Murder Ball. And
great documentary.
Yeah, that was what wheelchair rugby was called originally. And like they say in the documentary, they couldn't market Murder Ball to corporate sponsors. So I guess the camaraderie off the court and just the mutual respect for each other on the court, they decided to name the sport wheelchair rugby. So yeah, I watched that documentary, and at the time I was like super frail. I couldn't do anything on my own. I needed help with everything. And I just thought, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do this, but it would be awesome if I could one day. So there's something to strive for. And I'd say about a year and a half later, I was at rehab hospital in Toronto and decided, you know what, let me reach out to the Ontario Para Network, which at the time was, it had a different name at the time. I can't even remember what it was called, but now it's ON Para. And reached out to them and got put in touch with a couple of people in Toronto, and got in my first rugby chair in, I'd say, probably November of 2011. And from the first time I smashed into someone else, I was hooked.
So it sounds like it was less than 2 years after your accident. You show so much perseverance and resilience that, you know what, here's a goal I want to strive for. And much like anybody who plays rugby, you get that first tackle, you get that first smash, you're hooked. I like that. So it's been, it's been 9 years that you've been playing now.
Yeah. 9 years.
November.
Long journey. A lot of hiccups along the way, but that's life, and you just kind of roll with it and take the good with the bad and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, you played in World Championships, you played in Canada Cups. Talk to us about that, like the pride in representing your country, wheelchair rugby on an international stage. Like, what's the culture of those events? What was that like for you?
So besides pride, it's a lot of responsibility. Canada invented the sport. It was invented back in '77 by a bunch of crazy quads out in Manitoba. And yeah, it's our game. So I feel a lot of pride whenever I put on that jersey, but there's a lot of responsibility as well, because we're representing basically the country that made this sport and came up with it. Playing at Worlds, oh man, that was crazy. First time in Australia, longest flight I'd ever been on, and in a wheelchair, you can't really get up and stretch your legs, and it's not the best experience. But when you get there and you spend a few days just kind of acclimatizing and having a look around the city or the venues and just meeting the people there, it was crazy. It was an awesome experience. World Championships, 10 teams, I believe. No, 12 teams. And 12 of the best teams in the world. It was daunting, but we were prepared. We were a young team at the time. Still a few growing pains, but we worked hard, and I think we finished 6th at that championship. So, yeah.
6 is better than 7th.
Very true. Very true.
And you're in Australia. Like, I mean,
yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. I'd never been to that side of the world, so it was awesome.
That's great. One of my coworkers is from Australia. He coaches rugby with me, so we like to banter back and forth. He knows I love New Zealand rugby, and of course, New Zealand lost a couple here recently. So he popped into my class today and gave me a few shots across the bow about that one. So
of course, I'm sure that rivalry is pretty heated.
Yeah. But speaking of international, before we started recording, so the listeners, just so you know, we were talking about some of the ups and downs of COVID, and unfortunately, Eric and his teammates missed their Olympics this year, the Paralympics. I know this question's kind of be thrown at you. It wasn't one of the ones that I was going to queue up for, but can you talk about that, like training for that and the disappointment and what you're doing now to try and, I guess, persevere through that?
Yeah, at first it was a little disappointing, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is our health and our team's health and our family's health, and traveling is probably not a great idea at this point in time. So we just have to take this extra year to work on whatever weaknesses we may have and basically get stronger as a team and be even more prepared to perform in Tokyo in 2021.
Yeah.
We've been working at home during lockdown. Everybody has their own little home gym set up. And as soon as the lockdowns were lifted or some of the measures were loosened up, we were able to return to our training facilities. Our team's pretty spread out across the country. So here in Ontario, we're fortunate enough to train at the Toronto Pan Am Sports Centre and the Canadian Sport Institute. And yeah, we've been there since I'd say June. At least 3 times a week, weight room sessions and on-court sessions as well. So yeah, just working hard.
That's awesome. So many, especially the female athletes that I've been talking to that missed the Olympics this year and the World Cup for them that was this year, they're all saying like, we had that down where, you feel bad for yourself for a couple of weeks and then you realize, this is for the best. It gives us more time to prep. And it sounds like you and your mates are doing the same thing. You're just, all right, let's shift gears. Let's focus on next year and be ready for that.
Absolutely. We're looking at it as an opportunity to come out even stronger than we would have if the Paralympics had been this year.
That's great attitude, great spirit.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift a little bit to your club rugby. You play for the Toronto Titans.
Yeah.
And when I was looking at it, it looks like there's a lot of teams around, and we've got a couple other guests, a couple of your national teammates, Mike and Patrice, coming up, and you play against them.
Absolutely.
So what's that like? What's the club wheelchair rugby like?
Oh, it's awesome.
What if I'm going to a game, if I COVID's not here and I'm going to fly to Toronto, what can I expect to see from one of these games?
Oh, you're going to see guys just literally banging around at 100 miles an hour, chirping each other from the sidelines, having a great time. And then at the end of the games, just going out for a beer and dinner. It's a super laid back environment. On the court, we're competitive. Yeah, we push each other to our limit. But at the end of the day, we're all one Canadian family and one team, and we all go out together and have a good time.
So you talk about the pride a little bit with the national program, but is it like that too when you're playing against your national teammates? Like, I'm going to be better than you. I want to smash you.
Oh, it's a chance you get to kind of take a few jabs that you wouldn't have if you're playing with them. So yeah, you take a couple of shots at the guys you don't normally get to. get to exploit some of the stuff they're not that good at, and they'll do the same to you. So yeah, it's fun, man. It's really fun. It's a great environment, and you got all the families that come out as well, and basically the people who put on our tournaments are all families as well, families of the players, and it's just a super fun environment to be in.
So where do you play your home games?
We play at a Bill Crothers Secondary School, which is out in Markham. That's where we practice as well. Now with COVID going on, we haven't had any club practices at all. It's only been high performance, so that's kind of a bummer. But we hope that this will start clearing up, and as soon as this vaccine gets rolled out, we'll be back at it.
Yeah, it sounds like Pfizer's pretty close, I think.
Yeah, I was reading today in the news, they say they have a 95% effectiveness, so
That's pretty good.
I guess it's just a matter of getting that rolled out.
Yeah. With the club rugby, the Toronto Titans, and the league you play in, how does that compare when you're on the international stage with Canada?
It's a little different. There's, I'd like to say the level of rugby is not as high, and that's to be expected because you got guys that are there that are out there just to have some fun on a weekend. They're not in the gym 5 or 6 days a week working their butts off to try to go compete against other countries. They're out there to have some fun. They're out there to throw the ball around and smash into each other and then go get some beer after. So
It's an important part of the game, right?
Oh, it is so important. I like to say rugby is not only a sport, but it's also a way of life, and especially wheelchair rugby, because you get to hang around with guys that have been in wheelchairs longer than you and teach you so many things that therapists can't teach you. Everyday hacks, all kinds of tricks and tips. And yeah, it's just a community that gets together and basically makes your life so much easier if you weren't part of it than if you weren't part of it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I work at an independent school in Rossay in New Brunswick, and one of the things we do is we bring in some equipment. So we've had sledge hockey equipment, and when I was coaching a midget A team, we just ran a practice where everybody was in the sledges. And I mean, it's not rugby, but watching the boys struggle with that, and then starting to get the hang of it and playing, it was really cool to see. It was something really interesting. It's there's another level of respect that I think everyday people sometimes don't fully understand the trials.
Absolutely.
And then when you go through it, it's like they were exhausted to begin with, but they were so amazed at the talent that it goes with people that are playing para sports. It was amazing.
Yeah, we've done with the Ontario Para Network, we've done a couple of like team building exercises with some different companies that like getting their staff together to do those little retreats to kind of build the team morale or the company morale.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I find at the end of those sessions where they've all been in a wheelchair banging around and playing for about half hour is they're all just completely gassed. They can't lift their arms above their heads, and I'm just, that's pretty much how we feel all day, every day, buddy. But it's cool to see other people give it a try and kind of just see what it really is like to push that chair for, even if it is just 10 minutes at full bore.
Yeah, it's something completely different.
Definitely.
All right. I found this neat when I was doing my research. Level Playing Field, this TV series.
Yeah.
So you were on this TV show, which is really cool. How did that happen? Like, what are your acting chops like? Is Hollywood calling now? Like, what's that experience?
I've got a face for radio, so I don't think Hollywood will be calling anytime soon.
I've got a face for podcast.
There you go. We're in the same boat. But no, we were, I think we were part of another documentary as well by AMI TV, who, shout out to AMI TV for giving us so much coverage. They've been unreal at pushing wheelchair rugby out into the general public eye, because I don't know of any other channel that's been doing that. But yeah, it was interesting. They just basically interviewed us and asked us a few questions about ourselves and about our sport. Unfortunately, the day that we were taping at the Toronto Pan Am Center, I was a little bit under the weather, so I wasn't able to be there. But one of my teammates, Shane, was able to take, I think it was Greg Westlake, through the paces and have him bang around with the guys during that training session. But it's a pretty cool episode, and if you get a chance, have a look at it.
I think it was season 2, episode 7, if memory serves correct from my research.
I couldn't say.
All right. So, Eric, we're at the point in our podcast now where we switch to quick fire. So I've got about 20 questions here.
All right.
As I said before the pod, about half are rugby based, half are personality based.
Yeah.
And it's just for fun. So some of them, it's supposed to be quick fire, but sometimes some of the guests, they ponder a little bit because it just stirs up some memories. So
Absolutely.
you ready to try it?
Let's go.
All right. Question 1, best team you've ever faced?
Ooh, best team. I'd say USA.
USA?
Absolutely.
All right. Best player you've ever faced?
Oh, man. There's so many out there. Best player I've ever faced.
Could be a
I'd
teammate.
I'd probably say Riley Batten.
Okay. USA?
Australia.
Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Toughest player ever faced. And usually when I say this, it's that player, it's 1v1. You look up and you're like, oh God, just help me stop
Not
this person.
again.
Same?
No, not the same.
Oh.
Just look up and think, not again.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'd have to say he's on my team, Trevor Hirschfield.
Is he going to listen to this and like go at you at practice sometime?
Probably. He goes at me all the time. Yeah.
All right. What was the best match you were a part of?
Probably a game we played against France in Tokyo. Double overtime. We ended up winning double overtime. Yeah.
Nice.
That was a tight one, and I was completely gassed at the end.
I imagine.
So yeah, it was a good one.
What's your favorite rugby tradition?
Favorite rugby tradition? I'd say when we drop the hammer at the end of each practice at training camp or at the end of a game. It's a kind of team tradition. We get together in a huddle. And, well, I'm not going to explain it. You'll have to go watch it.
Okay.
If you watch any of our games, you'll see it at the end.
Will do. Dropping the hammer.
Yeah.
All right. What's the best team you've ever played with?
Team we're on now.
Canada or the Titans?
Team Canada, hands down.
Okay. What's your rugby nickname?
Erod.
Erod?
Yep.
Self-explainable. All right.
Self-explanatory.
Who's the player that you love to smash?
Ooh, player I love to smash. All of them. Anyone that gets in my way.
That's fair. All right. Any rugby superstitions?
No, not a superstitious guy.
Okay. All right. Did you watch the Jordan documentary, The Last Dance?
Yes, sir.
Who would be, from the players you've played with, the Jordan, the Pippen, and the Rodman?
Whew. All right. The Jordan, I'm going to have to go with Trevor Hirschfield.
Okay.
The Pippen. Whew. I think we're all Pippins. And the Rodman would probably be Shane Smith.
Okay. That was pretty good. That was pretty quick for those. I like that. Who was your childhood hero?
Oh, man. That's a good question. Childhood hero. I think my mom.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. What's the most used app on your phone?
Yeah.
TikTok?
I haven't got that one. I think I'm a little past the age limit for that one. Most used app on my phone. Jeez.
You're going to pull your phone out and check, aren't you?
On my phone, I would probably say Instagram.
Instagram, okay. What's your go-to food?
Go-to food. I love burritos.
Burritos. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Chips or cookies?
Chips for sure.
What kind?
Nacho chips.
Okay.
With salsa.
Nice.
Guacamole.
Yep. Can't go wrong there.
No.
French fries or onion rings?
Oh, French fries.
Poutine or French fries?
I'm sorry to my friends in Quebec, but
Oh,
French fries.
boo.
I know.
All right. What's your favorite beer?
I don't drink beer.
Okay.
I'm a red wine guy.
All right. What's your favorite red wine?
I'd probably have to say a nice Rioja from Spain.
Okay. Spain. Nice. What's a guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. Ooh. Don't let my wife hear this, but 90 Day Fiance.
You just looked up. Is she standing behind you or something?
No, she's in the other room.
Okay. All right. What's the best place for a post-match beer or post-match glass of wine?
Oh, I'm going to have to say rest in peace, Kaylee's in Vancouver, where we used to go right after our Vancouver Invitational or Canada Cups. Used to be Kaylee's. Now they've changed names and ownership to something else.
It's not good
I
now.
haven't been there since, say, March, I think. So rest in peace. That was a great spot.
All right. What series are you binge watching right now?
Right now, we are trying to binge, but we can't really because it's one episode comes out at a time.
Mandalorian.
No, The Undoing.
What's that one?
It's a murder mystery on HBO Crave.
Yeah.
With Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant.
Oh.
And yeah, it's really good.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, but like I said, we can't binge it because it's one a week or something like that.
It's like old school binge, right? Like you watch it as soon as it comes out.
There's no commercials, so
that's right. All right, what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, there's so many. I'm gonna go with a classic, Shawshank.
Oh my Lord, I was gonna say Shawshank. That's the most common answer, Shawshank Redemption.
Really?
Yeah, love that one too.
That's a great one.
That and The Princess Bride are two of the top picks.
That was a good one too. Yeah.
All right, 3 questions left for the quick fire.
Mm-hmm.
Who would play you in the Netflix movie of your life?
Oh God. Oh man, I don't know. Who would play me? Who's the actor that did Bleed for This? That boxing movie about the kid who broke his neck and then kept boxing after that. Miles Teller, I think.
You keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
Miles something.
Bleed for This?
I think so. I think that's the name of it.
Bleed for...
It's a pretty cool movie as well. I like him. I think he did that movie about the jazz drummer as well.
Miles Teller.
Yeah, Miles Teller. There we go. That'd be cool if he did it.
Good call. Who would play the leading lady?
Oh, God.
Your wife's not listening. She might listen later, but she's not listening right now.
ScarJo.
Who?
ScarJo. Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, yeah, okay. Hey, she might get mad at that answer, but I approve.
I'm sure she will, but...
All right, last one. What would the movie be called?
Push Yourself.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for those, Eric. We only got a few questions left.
Yeah. They weren't very rapid fire. I had to think a little.
No, they were pretty good. They were pretty quick. Not bad. All right. Who's had the biggest impact on you as a player?
Wow. I like to say that I kind of try to take as much as I can from every player that I've interacted with, because all the guys on our team, and not just on our team, but also some of the club guys, they have their je ne sais quoi or whatever that I'd like to kind of model myself off of. But 2 guys I can definitely point out are Garrett Hickling and Dave Wilsey, 2 absolute legends of the sport. You should actually have Dave on or Garrett because they'd be great guests.
Would love to.
But yeah, Garrett was probably the Michael Jordan of wheelchair rugby for a long time. And Dave, probably the Scottie Pippen. But yeah, they were 2 legends of the game, and they've taught me so much. I've been fortunate enough to have played with them since I started, and I've learned so much from those 2 guys that, yeah, definitely them.
Nice. Good shout outs. One thing we always talk about on the pod, and I love asking this question because, in my opinion, rugby is one of those sports that, you know, I like you, I've played many sports in my life, but there's just this different sense of camaraderie and sportsmanship and team atmosphere that comes with rugby. How important is that for you playing with those guys at the national level? Like how important is camaraderie and team bonding for Team Canada at the national level?
Oh, it's super important. When we're in training camps, we're playing against each other and we're going as hard as we would against any other team in the world. And we know that we're only making ourselves better by going at each other as hard as we can. And sometimes we go over that line, but at the end of that day, we know we've got each other's backs no matter what. So we're basically a band of brothers out there. And we know that we're not going to let anyone step on our toes if anyone gets in front of us. But during that camp, we're pushing each other to the limit, and we're taking jabs at each other, and we're doing it. We're not doing it out of spite. We're not trying to hurt each other. We're doing it to make each other better. And everybody knows that. Nobody takes anything personally. We all just work our bags off as hard as we can to try to get better.
Yeah, and that's what you want for sure. That falls in nicely to the next question. Like, what are your thoughts on what makes a great team player? And I think you've already answered that, but is there anything you can follow up with that?
Well, I think a great team player is someone who you can trust has put in the work, because like I said, we're a team that's spread across the country and we all train decentralized. And when you trust that that guy has put in the work at home, in the gym, on the court, in the video room, when you come together, you don't even have to worry. You just know that everything is going to work because that person has given all they had during that time that you're not together.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty nicely there. All right, I want you to flash forward here, 2032, 10 years after the 2022 Olympics. You're at a reunion with your old mates. You're celebrating the golds that you won 10 years earlier. What do you want those guys to say about you? What do you want them to remember about you?
Oh man, it's just my work ethic and how much I put in to get whatever I did get out of that game or those games, because I am like the least functioning guy on the team. I have the least amount of muscle. I'm not the fastest guy on the team by any means. So yeah, if they look back and say, hey, there's a guy that worked his bag off and didn't take any days off, I'd be pretty happy with that.
I don't think anybody could ask for anything else. That's what you wanted. That's what I would expect most people would want to be saying.
Yeah.
All right. Lastly, Eric, any great rugby stories you can share with us? Feel free to throw somebody under the bus, or maybe it's just a lighthearted story.
Great rugby story. This one's probably not it's not technically rugby, but it was my my first trip with the national team. Alabama. We're staying at a Holiday Inn, I think. And I'm not a big fan of swimming. So
I see a pool over your right shoulder, though.
Nope.
No?
No. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of swimming, and the guys decided they wanted to go for a swim in the pool, and they wouldn't take no for an answer. And I'm like, I don't really want to get in the water. I'm not a big swimmer because I don't swim. I swim like a rock. I sink. And they're like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. I'm like, all right, screw it. Let's go. I get down there, get down to the pool, and guys are kind of wheeling up to the pool side and dropping themselves in the pool. And I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. And I'd say in about 5 seconds, our HPD and head coach at the time literally picked me up and just kind of chucked me in the pool. And it was sink or swim. And I sank for a bit. Then I got up out, got my head out of the water and managed to breathe. And a couple of the older guys, one of the guys you're going to have on your podcast, Mike, he helped me out, kind of shuffled me around the pool like a pool noodle. But yeah, it was a fun story there.
So do you jump in the pool now when you guys are away, or do you stay away from the pool altogether?
Stay as far away from the pool as possible. I'll sit on the side and have a drink and enjoy the sunshine, but no, I'm not getting in the pool. That's a lot of work.
That's awesome. Well, Eric,
very high risk, very little reward for me.
If Scarlett Johansson's poolside, what are you doing?
I
Change the game plan there?
no. I'm sitting right next to my wife like a good boy.
That's a great answer. Listen, Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us. And I can't wait to see you guys at the 2022 Olympics, Paralympics.
2021.
Oh my God. I'm that's how far out of 2020 I am. I'm already looking 2 years ahead.
You're not the only one, my
Yeah.
friend.
I'm excited to watch and see you guys medal. And I'm excited
can't
for that.
wait. Can't wait.
Anyway, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Eric, for taking the time to chat with us. That was a lot of fun. Best of luck prepping for those 2021 Paralympics. Coming up next, we have Mike Whitehead and then Patrice Desjardins, followed by Cindy Nellis and then Kyle Bailey. Kyle and I will be chatting soon. And then, like I said, we're going to be doing that group pod with the 3 wheelchair ruggers and dissecting the game. As always, I want to thank the listeners. It's great that you're spreading the good rugby word. Do that as much as you can for any of the pods, just so that people start to get a little bit of recognition for what they do. I need to say thanks to Ben Sound Music. Oh, actually, no, it's not Ben Sound Music. I forgot to tell you, if you haven't heard, our intro music and our outro music is going to be a little different. So this is season 2, episode 1. I just had my 50th last pod, but this is the start of season 2. And my 12-year-old is in his music class, and he asked if he could design some music for me. So that's why when you heard it start up, it was different than what we used to have. So instead of Ben Sound Music, I'll have to change that. Thank you, Rylan Gray, for supplying with our tunes. I hope you enjoyed. He likes to rock out as well, so I was pretty happy to have him do that. As always, feel free to request topics for future podcasts. And as always, this is Jamie. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane. Most importantly, keep on rocking.